Hello and welcome to this episode of Kennedy Saves the World. It is 3:17 as we are recording this in New York City. We have gotten word and seen video of Charlie Kirk, who was shot in Utah at a Turning Point event. We know there is a suspect in custody. And at this point, what we know is that Charlie Kirk has been taken to the hospital. We hope and pray that he survives this. But there are so many layers to this story and where we are as a society, where we are in terms of political reactions, and those reactions that include violence and assassination attempts. And all we can say right now is Charlie is obviously a very outspoken person who is an incredibly effective communicator. And those communications tend to ruffle people's feathers, and he touches on sensitive issues that get people buzzing and angry for days and weeks into various news cycles. And he has done that very well. He has galvanized a movement. He is very supportive of the president. The president has put out a post basically saying what we know now is that he has been shot, and he hopes that he pulls through. Joining me now is Winston Marshall.
Hi, Kennedy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you were in Mumford Sons. That's where people knew you for a long time. You gave a positive review of Andy Ngo's book, Unmasked, which I thought was great. I've known Andy for several years. I've interviewed him many times. He took me on a ride along through Portland where we could see the violence that was overflowing from the George Floyd protests and beyond during the COVID pandemic, and how federal law enforcement, particularly U.S. Marshals and the U.S. courthouse that they were guarding, was under siege. You basically had to leave the band because you took a look at society and you saw where we are, and you weren't accepting the narrative that you were given. You could argue that Charlie Kirk has been the same way. He's been very outspoken, taking a look around, and a lot of his comments run contrary to the groupthink that has taken hold in many cities and many communities, and not done them a great service, shall we say. So you have seen the footage of what happened. You are very moved by what has happened. What are you feeling right now?
Well, I didn't know about this as I was coming to speak to you, and as I arrived here at the building, your staff and team told me about it, and I foolishly looked on X and immediately saw what happened. I'm horrified. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen, and I have to pay homage to Charlie at this point. I never had the privilege of meeting him, but he's invited on my show. He invited me on his show a couple of times. Mm-hmm. Once after I debated Nancy Pelosi last year, he invited me on to talk about it, and we talked about lobbying powers and DC and various populism. And then again, he invited me on to talk about what was going on in Britain. And he'd actually just visited Britain, I know, recently. And not only has he been completely forward-thinking and brilliant on things going on in America, but he also had that sight for Britain. And I was very grateful when he came to Britain and spoke clearly and gave clarity over issues we had there. This is a man that was an autodidact. He taught himself. I think that is a sign of if you consider how brilliant a mind he was, if you look at him in his various debates, whether it's in my country at the Oxford Union, or if you saw him, he does these sort of street debates with Turning Point. It seems to be that this is where this has occurred in Utah, and he debates people. He fearlessly will debate anyone, and that takes a tremendous amount of courage. Unbelievably brave man. Another thing I noticed about him is I really admired him for many reasons, not just his brilliant mind and his ability to grapple and study and make up his own mind on all these issues, and really every issue. But I noticed in America after Trump's second term that there was an ugly turn in elements of the right, and we'd seen the re-emergence of I'd seen emergence of, I mean, I've been calling anti-Semitism out on the left for a long time, and I've seen it emerge on the online right. And also, I think with the discourse around Israel, I noticed that Charlie went against the grain, even against his own tribe. And so this is a man of deep integrity. And clearly, I've seen photographs of his stunning, beautiful family. I can only assume he was a wonderful father. That this can happen, it's even coming from Britain. I don't really know. I guess even maybe Americans are more used to this. I doubt it. I don't really know what to make of where this says we are. Particularly this week, we saw what happened to that Ukrainian refugee in North Carolina, and so we sort of all this violence streaming through on our phone. But sorry, I mean, I guess at this point, I don't want to make this too much of a broad thing. What I really want to do is honor Charlie, and honor his family, and God bless them in this horrible time.
Yeah, because I mean, it must have been very scary for you when you put yourself out there and you expressed an opinion.
This is nothing.
But what I'm saying is, Charlie was one of the people who embraced you and wanted to hear more about your story, wanted to hear more about how did you come to the conclusion that you came to. And, and he was very curious about that with other people. He was curious when I had spoken to him about libertarianism and actually finding the intersections between libertarians and conservatives and, where we can meet, where we can find common ground. Because although he has been incredibly efficient at pushing back and finding the best ways to argue with people and turn their arguments against them and show the absurdity in that. And that is what he is most famous for. And that's why he has been such a lightning rod and attracted so much vitriol from the left. But he really, truly was curious about people like you and your story and had a great deal of compassion for someone like you who has essentially been ostracized from a profession that you love.
On the point of him attracting vitriol, even mentioning that, it's sort of by the by, and I don't mean that to sort of contradict you too much, but it is the case, I'm sure you know, Kennedy, that when you speak your opinions in the public sphere, in the public domain, it is perilous. People will attack you, except that we thought that was maybe at worst ad hominem verbal attacks. Yeah. What we're seeing now, and of course, how could we forget the assassination attempts on President Trump last year?
Josh Shapiro. In his own house, the governor of Pennsylvania, there are people, and again, you see anti-Semitism rearing its head. They set his house on fire while he and his family were sleeping inside. Yeah. This is not like one side or one ideology or one party or one tribe, as you say. The worry is that people have normalized this level of violence and the desire for blood from someone they disagree with, and the normalization of that. I was talking to a woman in the hallway before I came to this interview, and she said, I blame Luigi Mangione and the fact that he saw someone that he disagreed with and decided to take his life, and he was celebrated for that. And it is the celebration of that and the fact that human life has become so disposable. And when people call for the Intifada, they are calling for genocide. They're calling for the extermination of human life. And that is so easy to do. And we have gotten to a point in our society where we have tipped over the edge for many people where they are okay with that. I am not okay with that. Yeah. I don't care what kind of disagreements I have with someone. I don't want harm to come to them. I don't want harm to come to their family. And I don't believe that you should extinguish someone's life because their words trouble you.
Yeah. No, I totally understand. And I think as an American, of course, I can understand why you'd be so angry, and there's going to be a lot of grieving and a lot of anger in this period. And I mean, as you speak there, I also remember outside the Israel embassy in DC earlier this year, there's 2 people killed, one American, I believe, one Israeli, and maybe these stories aren't getting heard, but it's I guess I don't know what to say. I'm sorry. I'm really lost for words, but
Don't go anywhere. More Kennedy Saves the World right after this.
I was on a tour of Auschwitz and the whole Holocaust sites in Poland when that couple was killed. I was with some younger Israelis, and they could not comprehend what was happening in America, and they could not comprehend the way people were targeted for their love, for their religion, for their beliefs. And we are seeing this happen again with Charlie Kirk. And, it's like, I would encourage anyone who has any doubts about the Holocaust to go to some of these Holocaust sites in Poland and, see where the Warsaw Ghetto was, and go to Auschwitz and Birkenau and the places where millions of people perished, including 3 million Catholic Poles, and just see what the end result is of that level of hatred and disposability and dehumanization, because that is the goal for people who wish death on another person. It is the dehumanization and the extinguishing of that person and their spirit because you disagree with their opinions or their attributes or, their immutable characteristics.
I can only hope now that we have people who disagree with Charlie standing up and calling out this behavior, and that's where we'll get unity, because we don't want this to be a breaking point. America is the shining light on the hill. It's the great house on the hill. It's the bastion of freedom for the world. And if America falls, the world falls, the West falls. We need America. And I say this, I'm a British citizen. I'm here only visiting. I love America, and I'm a great British patriot. I love my country. But we need America, and a broken America is a broken world. I can only hope that America is galvanized in a positive direction by this. And I pray not just for Charlie and his family, but all Americans, that you're not further divided from your neighbors and from those you disagree. Hopefully this is opportunity. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to reach out to some of my progressive friends that I don't speak to as much.
Yeah.
Not to have a go, but to say, look, we need to come together.
Yeah.
I think, and perhaps that means assessing how we talk about things. Maybe I need to look at how I talk about things and just double check that I try very hard to be sensitive about things, and perhaps my language is gone too far. I'm gonna, it's a time for reflection now. Forgive me if I'm not being myself right now, but
no, you've had a very emotional reaction. You are phenomenal at expressing yourself and what you feel. I know you've done that through music for a long time. You're doing that with your show in words now, and you are having a meetup tomorrow on 9/11. And I'm assuming this will change some of the discussions that you have, but you're absolutely right. We have to be able to reach out to other people that we disagree with instead of throwing them away and canceling them and othering them and ghosting them and kicking them out of our lives. Because we have to find the thing that binds us together.
Yeah. And
we have to learn how to love people, because only when we truly love people, and not just people who agree with us all the time, can we have more respect for human life.
Yes, yeah, you're absolutely right. I couldn't say it better, Kennedy. Yeah.
And I wore my love hat because I feel it every single day. Yeah. And it's like it hurts you to your bones to have to process something like this that is so incredibly senseless. And this is not where we can be as a country. This is not where we can be as a culture.
One thing that I've noticed in my country is that for a long time we haven't, and then I'm talking about Britain here, we haven't talked honestly about the problems that our country have because we're worried about offending people. And as a consequence of that, the problems have got worse.
Yeah.
And it's okay to have those sticky, difficult conversations. We shouldn't be offended by words. Like, silence is not violence, neither are words, but violence is violence. And if we don't talk and we don't go for the fault lines, talk about the most difficult issues in a good faith way, then, God forbid, but there might be more violence, and no one wants that.
Thank you, Winston. Thank you for taking the time. I know this is a difficult day, but I really appreciate you. I appreciate talking to you. And at some point, we will talk about music again.
Kennedy, thanks for having me on your show. Obviously, the circumstances are absolutely dreadful, but maybe another time we can talk again. But thank you for having me on, and God bless the Kirk family, and God bless America.
Amen. Thank you very much. This has been Kennedy Saves the World. I'm Kennedy.
Listen ad-free with a Fox News Podcast Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app.
Oh, go ahead and leave me a review while you're there. I'd love to hear what you have to say. You've been listening to Kennedy Saves the World on the Fox News Podcast Network.